When it comes to access to healthcare now, tech innovation is levelling the playing field. Clevertar is a health IT startup. It uses so-called clever avatars to support patients with chronic conditions, supplementing human intervention. The company recently won the Talent Unleashed Award for Best Startup Tech Innovation and received praise from Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak. Well, Tanya Newhouse from Clevertar is in our Adelaide bureau joining the show now. Warm welcome into the program. Let's just understand what is quite a advanced but also cutting edge when it comes to medical care and oversight piece of kit, really. What was the genesis for this? Who had the idea?
Oh, look, that's a great opening question. We're a spin-out from Flinders University, and the researchers in the Artificial Intelligence Lab were investigating human-machine interaction and looking at how virtual characters can really be very influential. In fact, a virtual character, a virtual assistant, can really engage people, but it can actually influence behaviour, and so that has real relevance in healthcare and particularly in chronic condition management. So that's where we began.
What is required to actually operate this? What do you need to have the virtual presence alongside you?
Thank you. Really, you just need a smartphone. You need a smartphone or a tablet, a smart device, and Anna lives on that phone. In fact, we very much personify Anna. She lives on your device, and she provides assistance on a regular basis.
What was it about Anna? Just the name. I mean, did that come? Was that spat out as one of kind of the, 5 possible acceptable options, or and then you just put potluck? What was it?
Yeah. Oh, look, Anna is a fairly universal name. It's very easy to say. We use, so Anna has a synthetic speech. So she has a human voice, but it's synthesised, a bit like Siri. And she can say anyone's name, but she says her own name pretty well as well. So it's very simple and also animated, so it's got a double entendre there.
And is it something as well that if you're in one part of the world, say North America, and you want the kind of the twang, the Anna twang, you can get that versus the Ocker equivalent.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
yeah. So Anna is actually, she's an Aussie at the moment, that's for sure. But she could have any voice. She could be Spanish. But indeed, Anna is probably the first. She's going to have successors, both men and women, possibly old and young, and users will have the ability to select their own characters, which we think is really important, actually, in terms of engaging with those characters.
Now, when we talk about engaging, what step of the process do you turn on your smartphone and activate Anna and, along the road towards where you would otherwise be reliant on that human interaction?
Yeah, great question. We're really in the space of health coaching. So, for instance, if we're looking at something like a type 2 diabetic, they receive 6 hours of interaction with a human practitioner a year. So that leaves a lot of hours for them to self-manage. So where Anna comes into play is having a regular communication with the patient. That might be on a weekly basis or more frequently, perhaps on a daily basis, for them to upload their blood glucose readings. So it's really about a regular interaction with my health coach or my virtual assistant. That depends on the program that's being delivered. Anna is content agnostic, so what that means is that we can have her operating in a whole range of spaces. We've started with diabetes, but mental health issues, cardiac rehab. It's really quite limitless in terms of that content that can be delivered. So how those programs are delivered really depends on the chronic condition and what the providers want to achieve.
Tanya, what might some of the risks be that you've worked to minimise? For instance, if somebody becomes so dependent on Anna for prompting and then heaven forbid, there's a power cut for 48 hours, there's a storm, there's an outage, you cannot charge the phone, and then you start to be worrying about everything but the medication, which is, of course, vital, and not remembering which step you'd taken because that was your only default. It's a bit like having everything on the Filofax and then you drop it and it's just, you know, you've lost your life.
Yeah, that's true, and I think that's a risk. It's a risk for any application, and healthcare needs to be really quite mindful of those risks. I think the risks around over-dependence are probably not our greatest risk. Actually, I think there are other risks that most or that all providers of software face that we also face. But I think it's really about knowing that Anna is still a virtual character, and in fact our patients do know that she's still a virtual character and she's not going to be there if the power's off. And so, in fact, you know, on that point, we know that patients are more honest with Anna because she is an artificial character. So the fact she's artificial is something that's actually quite important in the application itself.
And what gave you that understanding that they were more likely to be honest with something artificial than real?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's actually a whole bunch of research around that, not just the work that we've, you know, that originated where we originated at Flinders, but around the world. That so there's some social pressure that occurs with a virtual character, but because we know that there's not a real person there, we can actually be more honest. It's a fascinating thing, and so indeed with behaviour management, it's something that we can really leverage and use in our application, and we do.
One final thought, talk about leveraging. If there was one missing link in this whole creative process, be it the venture capital space at a level that you would believe could be more, you know, better serving for the environment, what is it? What's missing out there?
Oh, well, actually, it's an interesting question. In our space, we're a technology company that's dealing with cutting-edge health, and so we kind of straddle the line between traditional tech, where it's all about consumer uptake and you know, that those sort of traditional metrics, and then there's therapeutics, and there's a very clear pathway towards commercialisation of therapeutics, and we kind of straddle in between those two, and so that's actually a bit of a challenge for us because it's about clinical efficacy, which we know about, but that takes a while to achieve, and yet we're a tech company, and so there can be traditional measures that are used for us. And so for us, it's actually about how we navigate that really interesting pathway. So that's a bit of a challenge, and we're on that path.
Tanya, we wish you well.
Thank you very much.